I am the proper authority, Chen cut him off. Admiral Sarah Chun's supreme commander of the Iron Covenant fleet. And you, Ambassador, are about to learn what happens when someone betrays humanity. The transmission cut off, and Chen turned to Webb, scan the transports, find everything useful, then destroy the ships. Leave one escape pod functional. I want Ambassador Zektar to return to his people with a message. Over the next hour, human boarding parties stripped the Corvani ships of everything valuable, advanced computer cores, rare minerals, weapon systems, even the food supplies went into the Retribution's cargo holds. What couldn't be taken was destroyed. The humans worked with ruthless efficiency, their black armor making them look like mechanical reapers in the bright corridors of the alien ships. When the boarding was complete, Chen herself entered Zektar's escape pod. The ambassador was huddled in the small craft with a handful of his staff, their golden eyes reflecting terror as they looked upon what humanity had become. You will deliver a message to the Corvani High Council, Chen told him. Humanity remembers. Every ship that fled when we needed help. We remember every call for aid that went unanswered. We remember every promise that was broken. And now we are coming to collect what we are owed. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Tell them that the age of humanity begging for scraps at the galactic table is over. Tell them that we have learned to take what we need. And tell them that what happened here today is just the beginning. As the escape pod drifted away from the burning wreckage of the convoy, Chen returned to her ship. The Iron Covenant had work to do. 5 years of planning, building, and preparing were about to bear fruit. The galaxy had abandoned humanity in its darkest hour. Now it was time to return the favor. The reckonings. 6 months after the first convoy raid, the galaxy had begun to understand that something fundamental had changed. Human ships, black as the void between stars, appeared without warning to strike at trade routes, supply depots, and isolated colonies. They took what they wanted and destroyed the rest, leaving behind only escape pods filled with terrified survivors and a simple message. Humanity remembers. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Bastion Station, the Iron Covenant's secret stronghold hidden in the Void Sector, where no alien government dared to venture. Around her, hundreds of displays showed the positions of human fleets across the galaxy. What had begun as desperate raids for supplies had evolved into something far more ambitious. Admiral, called General Torres from the tactical display. The scarred veteran commanded the Iron Covenant's ground forces, and his expression was grim with satisfaction. Operation Broken Trust is ready to commence. We have strike fleets positioned at 200 Corvani worlds simultaneously. The moment you give the word, we can begin the systematic dismantling of their entire alliance. Chen nodded, studying the holographic galaxy that rotated slowly before her. Red markers indicated Corvani holdings. Blue markers showed human fleet positions. For the first time in 5 years, there were more blue markers than red dot. Captain Reese materialized beside the display, her stealth suit shimmering as it deactivated. She led the Iron Covenant's elite infiltration forces, humans who had been modified with alien biotechnology stolen from abandoned research stations. Ma'am, our deep cover operatives confirm that the Corvani High Council is meeting in emergency session on their homeworld. They know we're coming, but they still don't understand what we've become. Dr. Vasquez approached from her research station, her eyes bright with scientific fervor. Admiral, the final batch of adaptive weapons has been distributed to all fleet commanders. Our soldiers are now equipped with armor that literally grows stronger as they face danger, and weapons that channel their emotional state into raw destructive power. The Corvani military doctrine simply has no counter for technology that evolves in real time during combat. This was humanity's greatest achievement and darkest secret. When the galaxy abandoned them, humans had been forced to look beyond conventional science for survival. They had experimented with biotechnology that merged consciousness with machinery. They had developed weapons that fed on hatred and fear. They had created armor that adapted to its wearer's emotional state, becoming nearly indestructible when powered by righteous fury. The aliens who had once called humans weak and primitive now faced an enemy that defied every assumption about biological limitations. Human soldiers could fight for days without rest, their modified metabolisms drawing energy from pure determination. Human ships could literally sense the fear of their enemies across vast distances of space. Human weapons grew more powerful. The more their wielders desired revenge, Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system. Across 200 star systems, the faces of human commanders appeared on her screen. Each wore the black uniform of the Iron Covenant, and each carried the same expression of cold purpose. "Today we end the age of betrayal," Chen announced. "Today we show the galaxy what happens when humanity is pushed beyond its breaking point. You all know your targets. You all know what was taken from us. The Corvani Alliance destroyed our colonies, murdered our families, and left us to die alone in the darkness. Now we return the favor." She paused, letting her words sink in. Every commander on the screen had lost someone at Titan Station or during the subsequent betrayals. Every human in the Iron Covenant carried scars from the galaxy's abandonment. Execute. Operation Broken Trust. Show them no mercy, because they showed us none. Take everything they have, because they took everything from us. And when they beg for the same mercy they denied our children, remind them that humanity has a very long memory. The screens went dark as human fleets across the galaxy moved into attack positions. Chen turned to the main tactical display, watching, as blue markers began to advance on red ones across hundreds of worlds. The first reports came in within hours. The assault on the Corvani border worlds had been a complete success. Human ships, equipped with adaptive armor and biotechnology weapons, had torn through defenses that had been considered impregnable. The aliens' energy shields, designed to stop conventional projectiles and plasma bolts, were useless against weapons that literally evolved to counter whatever they encountered. "Admiral," reported Commander Kim from the Bridge of the Vengeance, "Corvani Defense Grid, Sigma-7 has been neutralized. We've captured their primary weapons manufacturing facility intact. Estimated production capacity, enough small arms to equip 50 divisions." Similar reports flooded in from across the battlefront. The Corvani had prepared for a conventional war against the old human military. They had no answer for an enemy that used their own fear as a weapon, that grew stronger with every act of aggression, and that fought with a fury born from 5 years of abandoned grief. "Ma'am," called Captain Webb from his position at the communications station. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Corvani Prime. It's the High Council requesting immediate negotiations." Chen's smile was like a blade in the darkness. "Put them through." The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing the familiar chamber of the Corvani High Council. The 12 reptilian figures who governed the Alliance sat around their crescent-shaped table, their golden eyes reflecting barely controlled panic. At their center sat Chancellor Vorthok, the ancient Corvani who had ruled their people for 3 centuries. "Admiral Chen," the Chancellor began, his voice carrying the weight of desperation barely held in check. "We come to you in the spirit of diplomatic resolution. The Corvani Alliance acknowledges that... misunderstandings may have occurred during the recent conflicts with the Nexari Empire. We are prepared to discuss reparations and renewed cooperation between our peoples." Chen laughed, and the sound made several of the council members visibly flinch. "Misunderstandings? Chancellor, you personally signed the order that recalled your fleets from Titan Station. Ambassador Zektar stood on my bridge and promised eternal friendship while planning our abandonment. Your misunderstanding cost humanity 50 million lives." She stood, her black uniform marking her as something entirely different from the bright-eyed idealist who had once believed in galactic cooperation. "But I'm not here to discuss the past. I'm here to inform you of the future. As of this moment, the Corvani Alliance is dissolved. Your worlds now belong to the Iron Covenant. Your people will serve humanity as you once made us serve your interests." Chancellor Vorthok's translator struggled with concepts that politics had never contemplated. "Admiral, surely you cannot be serious. The Galactic Accords forbid the annexation of sovereign worlds. The other alliances will never accept such aggression. The same Galactic Accords that were supposed to guarantee mutual defense." Chen asked. "The same other alliances that watched humanity burn and did nothing." "Chancellor, you seem to be confused about the current balance of power. The Great Betrayal. The stars burned cold above Titan Station as commander." Sarah Chen watched the last Corvani battleship disappear into hyperspace. Around her, the command bridge of the UES Defiance shook under another barrage of enemy fire. Sparks cascaded from damaged consoles while her crew scrambled to maintain shields that were failing by the second. "Ma'am, the Corvani fleet has completely withdrawn from the sector," reported Lieutenant Martinez, his voice barely audible over the alarms. "They're not responding to our distress calls." Chen's knuckles whitened as she gripped the captain's chair. 5 minutes ago, the Corvani Alliance had been humanity's greatest ally in the galaxy. Their sleek silver warships had fought alongside human vessels for 3 years against the brutal Nexari Empire. They had shared technology, resources, and blood. Ambassador Zektar himself had stood on this very bridge just last week, his reptilian features arranged in what humans had learned to recognize as a smile, promising eternal friendship between their species. Now those same ships were fleeing, while humanity faced annihilation alone. Incoming transmission from Titan Station, called Communications Officer Park. Her hands trembled as she worked her console, its director Harrison. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the desperate face of Titan Station's commander. Behind him, Chen could see evacuation pods launching into space while explosions rocked the massive orbital facility. "Sarah, thank God. The station's shields are down to 12%. We've got 40,000 civilians still aboard, including 3,000 children from the Academy program." Chun's jaw tightened. Titan Station wasn't just a military outpost. It was humanity's crown jewel in the outer colonies. The station housed families, research facilities, and the genetic banks that preserved Earth's biological heritage. If it fell, humanity would lose not just strategic position, but its future. "How long can you hold?" she asked. "Maybe 20 minutes. The Nexari dreadnoughts are closing fast, and without Corvani support, Harrison's image dissolved into static. As another explosion shook his station. Captain Marcus Webb, Chun's second-in-command and closest friend since their academy days, moved to her side. The scar across his left cheek seemed deeper in the emergency lighting. "Sarah, we have to try, even if it's suicide." She nodded grimly. The Defiance was humanity's most advanced warship, but it was one vessel against an entire Nexari battle group. The mathematics was simple and brutal. They would die, but maybe they could buy enough time for the evacuation pods to reach minimum safe distance. "All hands, battle stations," Chen announced over the ship's intercom. "Today we show the galaxy what it means to be human. We don't abandon our people, we don't break our promises, and we sure as hell don't run when others need us." The Defiance surged forward, its fusion engines pushing beyond safety limits. Around them, space filled with the brilliant flashes of weapons fire as they engaged the Nexari fleet. For 18 minutes, they held the line. They destroyed 3 enemy cruisers and damaged a dreadnought. They gave the evacuation pods precious time to escape. But it wasn't enough. Chen watched in horror as Nexari fighters slipped past their defenses and began systematically destroying escape pods. Each explosion represented dozens of human lives, snuffed out in the cold vacuum of space. Children who would never grow up, scientists whose discoveries would remain forever locked in their minds, artists, teachers, dreamers, all reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. When the Defiance's main reactor finally overloaded, Chen and her surviving crew managed to escape in the last functional shuttle. They drifted in space for 6 hours, watching Titan Station burn before a human rescue ship found them. Of the 40,000 people aboard the station, only 3,000 survived. That was 5 years ago. The date was burned into human memory now as Black Tuesday, the day their alien allies revealed their true nature. In the months that followed, the pattern repeated across the galaxy. Whenever humanity faced desperate odds, whenever they called for help from their supposed friends, the response was the same: silence, abandonment, betrayal. The Corvoni claimed it was strategic repositioning. The Veltar spoke of political complications. The Minotaur Confederacy cited budget constraints. Every excuse was different, but the result was identical. Humanity stood alone, and one by one their colonies fell. Earth itself barely survived. The final Nexari assault, when the invasion fleets reached the Sol system, the planet's defenses had been reduced to a handful of outdated ships and desperate courage. The battle raged for 3 days above humanity's birthworld. Cities burned under orbital bombardment. Billions died. The lucky ones died quickly, but humans had one advantage their enemies hadn't counted on. They adapted. Chen stood now on the bridge of a very different ship in a very different place. The vessel around her bore no resemblance to the clean lines and bright corridors of the old Earth Defense Force. The walls were black metal, lined with systems that hummed with barely contained power. This was the Retribution, flagship of the Iron Covenant, and it was a weapon forged in humanity's darkest hour. Admiral Chen called Captain Webb, his voice carrying across the bridge with military precision. He wore the same black uniform as the rest of the crew, but as bore the silver insignia of the Iron Covenant's inner circle. Long-range sensors are detecting the Corvani supply convoy. 3 heavy transports, minimal escorts. They're following the shipping lane exactly as intelligence predicted. Chen turned from the viewport where she had been watching the swirling colors of hyperspace. Her reflection in the reinforced glass showed a woman transformed by 5 years of war and loss. The idealistic young commander who had once believed in galactic friendship was gone, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. Composition. Of the escort, she asked. 2 light cruisers, standard Corvini design. Our stealth systems should keep us invisible until we're within strike range. Chen nodded. The Retribution was humanity's first true stealth battleship, incorporating technology that the old Earth Defense Force could never have imagined. When the galaxy abandoned humanity, humans had been forced to look inward for salvation. What they found there surprised even them. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached from the science station, her dark eyes bright with the fervor of discovery. Once, she had been Earth's leading xenobiologist, fascinated by alien life forms and their potential for cooperation with humanity. Now she was something else entirely. Admiral, the adaptive armor is responding perfectly to the ship's emotional resonance. Fear levels among the Corvini crews are already spiking, even though they haven't detected us yet. This was humanity's secret. In their desperation, they had turned to technologies that other species considered impossible or immoral. Adaptive armor that grew stronger when its wearers faced danger. Weapons that fed on the user's anger and hate. Ships that could literally smell fear across the vacuum of space. The galaxy had called humans weak and abandoned them. Humanity had responded by becoming something that the galaxy had never seen before. Begin the attack run, Chen ordered. The Retribution dropped out of hyperspace like a shadow materializing from nightmare. The Corvini ships, sleek silver vessels that had once fought alongside human forces, detected them too late. The escort cruisers managed to fire exactly 3 shots before adaptive plasma cannons tore them apart. The transport ships, laden with supplies destined for Corvini colonies, didn't even have time to transmit a distress signal. Chen watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. Each burning Corvini ship represented justice for Titan Station, for the millions of humans who had died alone and abandoned, for the children whose escape pods had been left to drift in space while their supposed allies fled to safety. Ma'am, called the communications officer, were receiving a transmission from the lead transport. Its ambassador Zectar, the name, sent a chill through the bridge. Every member of the Iron Covenant knew that name. The Corvini diplomat who had smiled and promised friendship right up until the moment his ships abandoned humanity to die. Put him through, Chen said. The holographic display shimmered, revealing the familiar reptilian features of the alien who had orchestrated humanity's betrayal. Zectar's golden eyes were wide with what humans had learned to recognize as Corvini. Fear. Behind him, Chen could see smoke and emergency lighting from his damaged ship. Commander Chen, Zectar began, his translator rendering his hissing speech into perfect English. I am pleased to see you survived the unfortunate events at Titan Station. Perhaps we can discuss terms for the release of this convoy. The Alliance is prepared to offer substantial compensation for any misunderstanding between our peoples. Chen smiled, and several of her bridge crew unconsciously stepped back. Her smile had become something that even humans found unsettling. Ambassador, you seem to be confused about our current relationship. You are not negotiating with the Earth Defense Force. That organization died when you and your allies abandoned us. You are now dealing with the Iron Covenant, and we have very different policies regarding alien cooperation. Zectar, translator, struggled with the unfamiliar term, Iron Covenant. I am not familiar with this organization. Perhaps if we could arrange a meeting with proper diplomatic authorities. She gestured, and the tactical display behind her updated to show the real-time status of Operation Broken Trust. Red markers, representing Corvini worlds, were changing to blue at an alarming rate. In the last 6 hours, human forces have captured or destroyed every major Corvani military installation in this sector of the galaxy. Your home fleet was eliminated 20 minutes ago. Your orbital defenses went dark 30 minutes ago. And my ground forces are currently advancing on this very building. As if summoned by her words, the sound of explosions echoed through the council chamber. Emergency lighting began flashing as the building's shields failed under sustained bombardment. The Velta hegemony will never accept human expansion into this sector, Chancellor Vorthok insisted, even as his guards evacuated non-essential personnel from the chamber. They will mobilize their fleets to contain your aggression. Chen's smile grew wider and more terrible. The Veltar hegemony suffered an unfortunate industrial accident 3 hours ago. Their primary shipyards experienced simultaneous reactor failures. Very tragic. They'll be too busy rebuilding their infrastructure to concern themselves with our territorial adjustments. The truth was even simpler than sabotage. Human infiltrators had been placed throughout the galaxy's industrial infrastructure for months. When Operation Broken Trust began, a single coded transmission had activated sleeper agents on hundreds of worlds. The same biotechnology that powered human weapons and armor had been used to create nearly undetectable operatives who could blend into any alien society. The chamber doors burst open, and human soldiers in black adaptive armor poured into the room. Their weapons hummed with barely contained energy, and their visors reflected the emergency lighting like the eyes of mechanical predators. At their head strode General Torres, his scarred face grim with purpose. "Admiral," he reported, "the building is secured. We've captured all primary government officials and their essential staff. Resistance was minimal." Chen turned back to the cowering council members. "Chancellor, I want you to understand something. This isn't conquest. This is collection of a debt. Every resource we take, every world we claim, every life we control, it's all payment for what you took from us. The children who died in space while your ships ran, the colonies that burned while you repositioned strategically, the future you stole from humanity when you abandoned us in our darkest hour." She approached the Chancellor's chair, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. "You taught us that friendship was weakness, that trust was vulnerability, that in this galaxy only strength matters. Congratulations, Chancellor, we learned your lesson perfectly." The old Corvani's golden eyes met hers, and for a moment she saw something that might have been understanding. "What do you want from us?" "Everything," Chen replied simply. "Your technology, your resources, your worlds, your people. We want it all because that's what you took from us. The difference is, we're honest about it." Over the following months, the systematic absorption of the Corvani alliance continued with ruthless efficiency. Human administrators, backed by adaptive military technology, transformed alien worlds into production centers for the Iron Covenant. The Corvani people were not enslaved. Humanity had learned that lesson from their own suffering. But they were made to understand that their survival depended on contributing to human goals. Other alien governments watched in growing horror as humanity expanded across their former allies' territory. The Minotaur Confederacy offered diplomatic recognition of human territorial claims in exchange for non-aggression pacts. The Veltar hegemony withdrew their fleets to defensive positions around their core worlds. The great powers that had once dismissed humanity as weak and primitive now spoke of the human problem. In worried whispers, Chen stood once again on the bridge of the Retribution, now flagship of a fleet that numbered in the thousands. Through the viewport, she could see the construction of new Titan Station, built in orbit around the former Corvini homeworld. The massive structure would serve as both memorial to humanity's losses and symbol of their resurrection. Admiral, called Captain Webb, incoming transmission from Earth. Its President, Martinez. The holographic display revealed the face of humanity's elected leader, a woman who had been chosen specifically for her experience in dealing with alien diplomats. President Martinez had been Ambassador Martinez during the old days, when humanity still believed in the possibility of peaceful coexistence. Sarah, she began, using the informal address they had agreed upon in private communications. The other galactic powers are requesting a summit. They want to discuss humanity's recent territorial acquisitions and establish new diplomatic frameworks for interspecies relations. Chen considered this. The old Sarah might have been eager to negotiate, to find peaceful solutions that respected everyone's interests. But the old Sarah had died with Titan Station, along with millions of other humans who had trusted in alien friendship. "Tell them we'll consider their request," she finally replied. "But make sure they understand the new terms of engagement. Humanity no longer comes to the table as a junior partner begging for recognition. We come as the power that remembers what happens to those who break their promises." She turned back to the viewport, watching human ships patrol what had once been alien space. In the distance, she could see the faint glow of Earth, the home world that had nearly died because its allies valued their own safety over human lives. The galaxy had taught humanity a hard lesson about the nature of power and trust. They had learned that friendship meant nothing when survival was at stake. They had discovered that in the cold mathematics of interstellar politics, only strength commanded respect. But most importantly, they had learned that humans possessed a capacity for adaptation that their enemies had never imagined. When pushed beyond their breaking point, when abandoned by those they trusted, when forced to choose between extinction and evolution, humanity had chosen to become something new. The age of human weakness was over. The age of begging for scraps at the galactic table had ended. What rose from the ashes of betrayal was an empire built on remembered pain and the absolute certainty that no human would ever again die alone and abandoned, while their supposed allies fled to safety. They had betrayed humanity in war. Now everything they had belonged to Earth and Sarah Chen, Admiral of the Iron Covenant, guardian of humanity's memory and architect of its vengeance, watched the stars burn cold and bright with the promise of a future where humans would never again need to trust anyone but themselves. Asterisk.